Hey, Mark, you're muted. We can't hear you on Zoom.
There we go. Now we're unmuted. Mistake number one. Just a couple of notes before we get going. I've been sending out emails. The Gavin Hardcastle presentation that it's actually part of the Alberta Association that we're part of, but we are the host for that. And so that'll be a Zoom session on Monday, November the 8th. Because we're doing it through the Alliance, all the Alberta clubs are invited. I'm getting there. All the Alberta clubs are invited. So we're going to use the Images Alberta Zoom. They've got 300 seats on that. Should be enough, but if you're interested in the Gavin Hardcastle presentation, it'd be a good idea to get in before the other clubs do. And I know they are advertising it now. Other than that, I've got nothing else really to start. I did put out an email looking for volunteers. So if there's anybody got some spare time, we're still looking for a couple of spots there. And just want to mention one other thing that came up really quick. You probably saw an email last week that the Red Deer Aboriginal Dance, I got a hold of them back in August and said that we'd be interested in attending the powwow and getting them some images. And they responded on Thursday. So we really had, and I was out of town Thursday, Friday, Saturday, so it was tough. And I don't know if Carmen's here, but Carmen kind of took over for me last minute. It was a rush, but I think this might be a yearly event. So hopefully, yeah, it'd be nice to get on board with them a lot sooner next year. But the ones that were there, I've created the Flickr page for the clubs. So if we could upload some images, and I can send a link out for the Flickr page to everybody else when we start to populate it with some images. Right now, Bill Cosman is the only one that's put anything up there. But I'll send out that link so the rest of you can have a look at some of the images that the club was able to get for that event. That's it. I'll now pass over and Judy will introduce tonight's speaker.
So I have to do that. Okay.
Uh-oh.
I can't do that. What?
Here, I'll hold that for you.
This is too complicated, Mark. Okay, tonight we have the pleasure of having Sherry Penner speak to us. Sherry's photography studio is in Black Falls, so luckily she didn't have too far to travel. Sherry believes strongly in living life with purpose and finding the things that fire your passions. And she believes that every woman should have a beautiful photo of herself, which I'm sure she'll touch on in her 40 plus project, I think that's it. So I'm looking forward to this. And we've got some images of hers here. Unfortunately, you guys at home can't see them. Maybe she'll show them up. And anyway, Sherry, take it away. Thank you. Okay. So now.
And also for any people that are not here or at home, Judy has a 30% off my coupon on her phone. So just if you need it, Judy's got it.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Okay. So I'll stand here and say hello. Oh, that's right in my eye. I'm going to try not to read straight from my thing, and I'll probably go totally off script anyways. But I wrote out my whole life here today for you, and it took 10 minutes to read through it. So I'll try to elaborate. I'm just going to start by introducing myself and then talking a little bit about where I came from and how I got here. And then I have a slideshow of my work. to share with you. And then I also brought some things, and you can feel free to come up and look at them. They're not fingerprinty, so you can move them around and look. My name is Sherry Penner, and I have a photography studio in Blackfalds, and I moved to Blackfalds in 2012. And I run the studio out of my house, and I have my whole basement dedicated to my space there, which has been very lovely. I got my start in photography kind of by accident. When I graduated from high school, I wanted to move to Vancouver and work for a fancy advertising agency. And so I went to Nanaimo. I'm from BC originally, north of Prince George, well, west of Prince George. So anyway, when I got out of high school, I wanted to be a big advertising agency person. And I moved to Nanaimo to take their visual and graphic arts program. And I still to this day do not even know how I got in that program. There was about 500 people that tried out for it, and there was 25 spots. And I can't draw worth a toot. So back then it was all done by hand. There was nothing by computer. So when you were submitting, you know, your ad for the week or whatever class you had to have it drawn out. And anyway, somehow I got in the program. And by second year, I was on probation because my drawing skills were not very good. And I was allowed to continue if I agreed to take some fundamental art classes as well. So I was taking kind of 2 courses at the same time, and they were pretty intense. But my brain and my fingers could never get the ideas out. I had all these creative thoughts and ideas that were good. And when I presented my ideas, my teachers were excited, and then I just couldn't draw them. So, but in that course, there was 2 photography classes. And that's where I could start to find the realism, because I always wanted to be an artist that could just draw perfectly real. And I couldn't do it. My fingers didn't work. And I didn't have the patience, I think, too, to really learn how to do it. So photography was like, oh, here it is, right? I can finally get the realism that I wanted. And of course, back then it was all film and darkroom, but I really loved the process of the darkroom. And that made me think that maybe I should be a photographer. So I found the course at NATE, which is the photographic technology course. And I went there after my graphics program. So it's a 2-year program if you don't know it. And of course, back then, again, it was the same thing, all film and darkroom. And in the first year that we started, we had to lug around these giant cameras, like large format cameras. And they're like the old fashioned ones where you have to put your head underneath the curtain. And the negatives are 6. So it's huge, right? And there's this giant box that you have to carry it around in, and the tripod that weighs 50 pounds. And I had no car, so I had to take this thing on the bus. And we had to use that for an entire semester. We weren't allowed to use another camera. So then we got into Charlie, come! And can they not hear me? Am I talking too fast? Oh.
Holy fuck, Carrie. Charlie, come!
Oh. It's a pet. No problem. This will help make my presentation longer. So there I am at NATE, and I'm taking photography, and this is again still kind of pre-digital anything. And I'm loving the darkroom. And in the darkroom, I'd always try to be super creative with the way that I was developing my pictures. And then in my second year there, Photoshop kind of crept in, and there was the beginning Photoshop class. And I think Photoshop was only a couple years old at this time. And but then we could scan our pictures and we could merge them together and we could do all this fun stuff. And that's where my passion started to grow. Okay, now I've gone completely off topic and I'm probably not even on this page. So the cool thing about the program at NATE is that I've been mentoring a student, and she just started the program there now. And so it's completely different, but it's really cool that they're still offering it after all this time, which is, it's really good. They don't do film or darkroom anymore, but when digital first came out, I was totally reluctant to accept it. I thought that film would never, or that digital would never be better than film. And it wasn't until even I got married that I got a digital camera. So I was just, there was no way. I was film all the way. But then I realized what digital could do and how I could use my graphic arts and my photography, and I could finally create the artwork that was in my head on computer. And so that's what I've been striving to do ever since. So yeah, it was after I graduated from NAIT, I never wanted to take another picture again. It was it was so intense. The program was there's 6 courses a semester, and it really should be a 4-year course, but it's crammed into 2. And so I quit everything and I moved home and worked on the family farm for 2 years. And photography became a hobby. But then I realized that I was too young to settle down on the family farm, and I moved to Red Deer. And for the next many years, I worked as a graphic designer and did photography on the side. So I'd have, a cousin ask me to shoot their wedding or, something like that. And it kind of still kept in my life, but it wasn't something that I was doing seriously. And then I got married and I moved back to BC because that's where my husband was living. And we're from the same town, but we had parted ways and then reconnected. So when I was there and I was working as a graphic designer as well, we got married and had our first kid. And at that time, I realized that I wanted to stay home and I had to figure out a way to make some money. So I was like, I'm going to open a photography studio. Why not? I took a course 10 years ago, right? So my husband got me a digital camera, and I was already good with Photoshop and stuff by then because I had been working in graphic design for so long. And then I decided, yep, I'm going to be a newborn photographer because, hey, I just had a newborn and that must be good. But then I realized that I don't really like handling other people's babies, and I don't have the patience to rock a baby to sleep for 3 hours and then take 5 pictures. So that was out. So I tried wedding photography, which I really liked, but it sucked up all of my good weekends in the summer. And I had, by this time, 2 little babies. So I was like, I can't be a wedding photographer. And at that time we decided we're going to pack up and we're going to move back to Alberta. So that was 2012. And when I got here, I decided, okay, I'm going to be a portrait photographer. I'm going to have a studio, and this is where I'm going to go. But meanwhile, all this time with my photography, I've been dabbling in composite photography, where you take different pictures and you put them together as one, and you create a piece of art. And I knew that that was where my passions lie, but it was really hard to convince a client that was coming in for their family photos that, hey, maybe we shouldn't go outside and stand in the field and pose all perfectly beautiful. Let's dress up like Vikings and I'll make this really cool art portrait for you. And people were like, what? So it was hard to convince people that this is what they should do. It's no vision, right? And I am a visual person, so unless I have samples to show people, I can't explain it very good. So I decided I was just going to do these little projects on the side. And so at first I started just putting out model calls for people to come and model for me. And then it got kind of popular and people were like, hey, I really like it. Can I do your next one? And can I do your next one? And pretty soon I had no clients that were paying, and I had all these people that just wanted to do a project for free. So I'm like, I got to figure out how to make these projects actually pay the bills. So I started in 2018, with my first project. I'm not even going off of this, so I might as well put it down. So my first project, I decided I wanted to do something super creative, and I wanted it to be with kids. And so what I did was I put out a model call online, and the thing was for kids that were 8 to 18, and they had to submit a story that had an original character. So it couldn't be a story about Batman or Spider-Man or whatever. And they had to have created this character And then they would come into the studio and they would be that character. And I would create their story in one picture around them. And I had 13 people sign up for it. So I called it Series 13 because I didn't know what else to do. And then I had a couple people drop out. So then it ended up being really just the Series 12 with 2 of them being my kids. So, but it was my first kind of jump into doing something like this. And it was so amazing. So what happened was I did all the photo shoots and all the artwork and nobody saw anything. And then at the end, I had all the kids and their families come to the studio and we did a live reveal of the project. And seeing the kids' faces just light up when they saw their character and saw themselves as their character was like so fulfilling. It was like so amazing. So then I'm like, oh my God, I gotta do this again. And so the next year, I ended up going to a photographer's retreat for the Way Out West Fest, which is out of Calgary. And they put on a photographer's retreat thing. And that year it was called Shoot the West. And we got to go to John Scott's ranch. And that's where they film a lot of movies. And then they brought in these cowboys and then they just kind of rode around all day long and we just took photos of them. And so I took the pictures that I took at that retreat and then I created art portraits with them. So the art portraits, everything that I do now is kind of like, I take pictures of things and then I create other artwork out of them. So when I do some kind of a project, it's always either to learn something or to create fine art prints that I can just sell out of my store. And so I can hold up a couple of those. Actually, I brought a couple from the Shoot the West. So I don't know if you can see that back home. Oh, there we go. So you know, this was just one of the horses and then I just take it and I make it look like it's a piece of drawn art instead of just a photograph. And say with this one, so this one here is actually 3 pictures put together. So I took the picture of the cowboy and then there's the picture of the field and then the picture of the cows. The sky was in the field. Yeah, with the field background. Yeah. And so that was my 2019 project. And then I went to the CFR and I sold them at the trade show there, which was really fun. And then 2020. So in 2020, I did 2 projects. I did a mermaid one, which I started right as the first kind of COVID shutdown was happening. And so it didn't go very far. I had 4 people sign up for it. And then we kind of called it quits until we figured out what was going on. And then towards the fall, I did a pinup project. So I love pinup. And the thought was the inspiration for the pinup project was Gil Elfgren. So he's, if you don't know his name, he's the guy, you would know all of his artwork. He's the person who really brought the pinup genre out there. And he would take photos of women and then draw them. And then they became the illustrations that everybody's familiar with. And so I thought, excuse me, I'm just gonna get some water. So I love pinup so much. So I'm like, well, that would be an awesome project. Let's do that. But I wanted to really like make these people look like the illustrations. And of course, the illustrations don't look like real people. They look completely drawn. They're this fake ideal of a woman, right? And so I put out the model call and I had 10 women sign up for it. And most of the women were over 40. And I explained to them very clearly about it, how I was going to change them, because I wanted everybody to know that they were probably going to get some pushback when these things went out online. This doesn't even look like you. That's totally fake, because it was supposed to be totally fake. I made everybody's eyes bigger, their lips bigger, their hips smaller, you know, like everything was very shaped to look like the Gil Elfgren pinups. And while I was doing it, and I love the way that it all turned out, but while I was doing it, it just didn't sit very good with me. Like I was like, why am I changing these women? Like there's nothing wrong with their bodies, their looks, their glamour, you know, we should be celebrating the skin that they're in. And so that brought me to this year's project, which was the Fab at 40 Plus project. So it was the biggest project that I'd ever done. It was pretty ambitious. I wanted 40 women over the age of 40 to come in for a glamour photo shoot, like get dressed up, red carpet, and celebrate who we are at this stage in life, because something kind of happens when you hit 40. You start going down a different journey and you have a story to tell of your past, but things are changing, things are different. And I wanted to explore that because I was also in my 40s. So yeah, so I signed up a friend and a friend told a friend and it kind of all blew up. And in the end, I shot 37 women in 6 months. I should have got it finished by the end of May, which is what I was aiming for, but COVID kind of shut things down a couple of times. And I ended up shooting 15 sessions in June just to try and wrap it up. And that was crazy. That was too many. 8 is my max. But in the end, I had this amazing collection and it was a full session. It wasn't just going for one art portrait. It was a full session for women so that they can see themselves glammed up, because we don't dress up anymore. And we're not even represented in the media. So we don't know what we're supposed to look like after you hit 40 years old. So I wanted to celebrate that. And I didn't want to erase everybody's wrinkles and I didn't want to slim people down. I just wanted to show everybody in their best light. And it turned out to be life-changing. And for them and for me, but a lot of women of this age have never even been professionally photographed. And they definitely haven't seen themselves usually since their wedding pictures. And they're always the ones behind the camera. So when they are in front of the camera, they're probably not at their best. And then they hate the pictures that they're in, but it's not them, it's just the circumstance that they were shot in. So, and I wanted it to be fancy, to dress up and to celebrate. So that's what we did. And yeah, it was amazing. So we're doing another one this year and I'm booking for it now and it'll start again in January. And again, it'll be 40 over 40, but with this year, you can bring your mom. So, so it might end up being more than 40 or we'll see how that goes, because I also want to shoot older, because again, people stop having pictures at one point and they shouldn't. I'm going to get my grandma in. That's my mission. She's 92 and she refuses to get in front of my camera, but I'm going to make her. We'll have to lie and cheat. And yeah, so now that's basically what I do. I do art portraits and projects, and I've somehow figured out how to make a living doing that, which has been lovely, because I really think that photographers should specialize, find what it is that fires their passion and then specialize in that. And you know, you don't have to be a jack of all trades just because you're a photographer. And so I don't shoot newborns at all. And I don't shoot weddings, although that's a lie. I shot my cousin's wedding this summer, but that's just because she was my cousin. And I create one-of-a-kind art pieces and I empower women with photography, and that's what I do now. So that's kind of my speech. I've put together all my projects on a slideshow, and then we can just kind of go through them, and it'll start with the Series 13 ones. So the Series 13, I'm just going to explain a little bit about their little stories. So they wrote their little story in their character and they came in, we dressed them in that character. And then I created the backgrounds around what their story was. And so one of the girls was a princess who could shapeshift into different animals. And there was it was a snake in her, or no, she turned into a snake in her story, but I couldn't figure out how to do a snake, so I turned her into a tiger. And then there was two other little girls who were sisters who came and did it. And they did like a Day of the Dead kind of theme where the one girl had gone missing, and so she was in the underworld. So it goes kind of fast, but she's actually, the younger sister is in a reflection in the puddle, and the older sister is got a wanted poster looking around for her sister. And that was completely their idea. I was like, whoa, that's pretty morbid, kids. They were young. And then there was a guy and he just had a wolf outfit, like a mascot type wolf outfit. So we made a story out of that. And when I asked my kids to fill in the spots that got vacant, and I asked my younger one what his character was going to be, he just said some kind of a robot. So I made him half robot, half kid. Oh, a nindroid, that's what he called it. Just a nindroid. I'm like, what is a nindroid? But that's what it is, half robot, half ninja person. And then my oldest son was some kind of a mechanic on a robot. And what else was there? Oh, there's a Viking one. But they came up with their stories and then we created the characters and it was really cool. So so that it'll go through that and it'll go through some of my Shoot the West ones and then the pinup ones and the Fab 40 ones. And then I've put together a couple, I've put together a couple behind the scenes type videos that show me creating the work so that you can see kind of the process that I go through. And in the first one that we'll play, it really shows how I can get hung up on an idea sometimes and then try to force it and it doesn't ever really work and then it ends up being something else. Because with photography, you got to find the right pieces of the puzzle to go together so that it works. And in that one, you can really see I had this one idea and I really wanted this one picture to be in it. And then in the end, I gave it up. What was your question?
I was just gonna say, so for your Western one, you said you were selling those, which is awesome at the rodeo. Do you sell any of your other ones that you have made, or are they all like just personal for those people?
It depends on what the situation was. If it was like a model call where I called it out and then I could sell them. But it also depends on the picture. Like with the pinup ones, like who wants to buy those? Like just the people that were in them. And so to me, it feels weird to try and sell that picture. And originally for the series 13 kids ones too, it was with the thought that I would sell them as prints. But it also became very personal to me. And then it feels weird to just sell them. Like with the cowboy ones, that was the intent to begin with. And they're just cowboys, right? You can sell that to Western loving art people. If I want something specific, then I usually hire a model, then I don't feel so guilty about it because So we can play the slide or the presentation one. Maybe you can pause it and. So I forgot to mention, but I also did an art, you had an option in the Fab 40 to choose to either dress up or dress down. So if you wanted to dress up in a theme, I would create an art portrait out of that theme. And so half of the ladies chose to do that. And then these are the ones that are from that collection. Oh, can you pause it for a second? I forgot about this part. Can you pause it? Yeah. Okay, so I forgot to mention that one of the things that I decided to do this year was to get my accreditation. And I don't know if you know about that, but what you have to do is belong to an association, and then you submit your work for judging. And then if it's at a high enough standard, you get points for your pictures, and you have to have a certain amount of points or merits in order to get your accreditation. So you can get an associate's level, a master's level, and a fellowship level. And so I'm starting that process this year as well. So I just started submitting my work, and these are the ones that I've entered and I've gotten awards for. So the highest award I've gotten so far is, I'm with the Portrait Masters. So you can also get your accreditation through PPOC or PPA. And I went with the Portrait Masters because I was already a member of that club, so I didn't have to pay that extra fee. And so they score theirs with bronze, silver, and gold. And bronze is the highest I've gotten, but I'm very proud of that. So I have 4 bronze with distinctions, which means it's almost a silver, and 16 bronzes. And I have 15 more that are being judged right now. So I'm going for my fellowship. I don't know how long it'll take me to get there, but we're on our way. So these are the ones that were awarded. Yeah. So before we start the next part, I'll just say the one thing about the Portrait Masters that I should have known better, I probably would have entered first into PPOC, was that when you're doing creative artwork, like where most of my work is, I can't submit that if I haven't taken all the pictures myself. So in PPOC, you can do that. You can use stock photos as long as you manipulate them enough to look original, and that the subject is your own subject. So like with the cowboy one per se, I could say, I took that picture of that cowboy, and then I put them in the pieces together, and the pieces don't look like the original artwork. Then you can submit that. You have to submit all of your pictures to show how you created it. But with the Portrait Masters, you can't. You have to take every single picture. So for now, most of my work has some kind of stock photos in it. So for now, until I'm going out there to shoot everything myself, I'm just doing portraits from the studio. So it's hard for me because I really wanted to submit something that's a little fancier. But it also challenges me to do better with my subjects, so that's good. So these next 3 videos are just kind of behind the scenes that show what, how I create the work. And I've speeded it up, of course, or we'd be here for hours.
I think you're gonna have to start it again because we can't see the screen. CAPS hasn't shared the screen with everyone.
So here I'm just really trying to make that background picture work, and it just was not working the way I wanted it to. But I wasn't giving up. Yeah, it takes between 4 and 6 hours usually to do one if I'm clear with my vision. Where this one, where I messed around for a really long time, it probably took a couple days for me to, not straight days, but like go and leave it and come back because I was just really wanting that one picture in there. It would, yeah, I really wanted there to be a lot of depth in the picture. Like I kind of wanted it to be like she was on this cliff going into a forest from a valley. And the valley picture just, the pieces just weren't meshing together. So even when I create something for some people, we go with a vague idea and I've got to go find the right pieces to fit with our theme. Yeah, number 2. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, Photoshop. Yeah, Photoshop's my best friend. I could stay on that all day long. Yeah. And I resisted it for a long time. Not Photoshop, but just the whole digital thing. And it's kind of funny now, but yeah. Yeah. And now, you know, film is the thing people play with, right? I mean, it's not even there anymore, really. So that's kind of it. That's all my presentation. Oh. Yep. Yeah. Well, see, that's the trouble I had when I first got started. I had all of these ideas in my mind and I couldn't make any of them happen on paper. So yeah, I just come up with these ideas. Usually, you know, like if I'm meeting with a client, I ask them certain questions about themselves and try to get the ball rolling. Like if they have a hobby or if they love a certain era, and then we kind of jump off from there. And then it depends on what we can find for clothing. And then we build our character. And then I always tell people to think of themselves as like a character in a movie, and we have like one shot to explain this movie. So it's either like an action part of the movie and we've had the one picture, or it's the poster for the movie that's being advertised. And then we kind of build the scene and the feeling around that. Sorry?
I guess the thrift shop, the Black Horse, is doing a roaring business.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. I'm all about finding clothing or getting donations or whatever. Like I've got quite a few things that I keep in the studio.
We have one question from the Zoom audience. Do the photos come from a certain add-on Photoshop or just individually to the net?
Most of the stock photos that I use, like the ones that I haven't taken, I get through Shutterstock. I've done Adobe stock photos as well, but they really like a subscription and I don't want to pay money every month. So yeah, but my next journey in life is really to build my own library so that it can just be all mine. But I have grander ideas than things that I have. I don't have old train sets and, you know, bears and dragons, you know, things like that. But I have taken pictures of toys too. So when a parent wants something like this for their kid, I often say, well, do they have a favorite toy? Or are they into something specific? And then we can build their portrait around what that is. So my youngest really loves dinosaurs. And so I've taken his little dinosaur figurines and I've taken pictures of them and then made him in the scene with the dinosaurs as if they were life size, stuff like that. And yeah, I always have more ideas. Like some people really like it and then they're like, oh, but I don't even know. Oh, don't worry, just come in because I got lots of ideas.
Can I just ask a question about your background photos?
Yeah.
You seem to have so many in that they all look like they kind of go together and they flow together. And do you purchase them in groups, like a setting, you know what I mean? Like they all kind of go in the same theme.
No, I just look for things that I can use. I don't really look at the lighting so much because I can change the lighting in photos, but they have to have, I just go by what it is that I'm looking for. So when I'm buying stock photos, I kind of go like, okay, I want a whole bunch of different skies, or I'm going to do mermaids. So I'm going to find a bunch of different ocean scenes. And then if we're doing something very specific to a specific background, and I kind of have that in mind first, I'll look at the pieces that I think might work before I shoot my person, and then make sure that I've used the right light on them that will match the pictures that I'm going to use in the background. If I can't manipulate. So if it's like a background picture that has is very dramatic and you couldn't just change the lighting, I'll try to shoot the subject so that it fits in the picture that I'm going to use.
That's a good idea. Do you have to do a fair bit of editing and cropping and whatever prior to being able to obviously slip it into your photo? It's just a very time-consuming process.
Basically, it's like what we saw. I don't edit the pictures individually first. I bring them in and then try to make it all work together. And if it doesn't work, then I abandon that picture and I find something else that will work.
Yeah, it was very hard to see from our end. I'm sorry, but we kind of missed that a bit. So, but yeah, we got the gist of it. But yeah, no, very, very creative, very interesting work you do. Very good.
I have a question. I was just wondering, so once you, I mean, this is kind of not really, because I never bought a stock photo.
Yeah.
Like once you buy it, you just keep that and keep it in your file then?
Yeah, you have the license to use it. You can't mass print them unless you buy a special license, but using it and changing it in any way that, like, you know, it's not really recognizable to other people. That's what they're for. That's why people sell stock photos. It's royalty free, right? So, you know, once you've purchased it from them, you can use it as many times as you want. You keep it in your own library, like a piece of, like a picture that you would have. You couldn't just take one of their photos and then print up a whole bunch of pictures and then sell them as your own. Like that would be a no. But if you change it or whatever, then yes. Yeah, so I print on a fine art paper. So it's called a velvet fine art paper. And so it's matte and it feels like watercolor paper or something that you would actually draw on. And it gives it a matte finish instead of a glossy finish or a satin finish that normal photo paper would have. So when I do art portraits, I print them on a fine art paper. And I've actually just found a new one that's even better. So I'm going to start printing on that. Yeah, you can frame. I don't frame myself because everybody has different framing needs. But yeah, they would frame it and they can put it behind glass and it's fine. I even say, like, if it's in a safe place, I hate glass because I hate reflection. So I don't glass any of mine. But of course, if I damage them, I can just reprint it. But yeah, if it's going to be hanging somewhere that it would be safe, you can still just dust it with a duster. I can print up to this size myself, and I do, because it saves me a lot of time and money. Anything that goes bigger, or if I print on canvas or on a metal print, then I farm that out. Sorry? I use GTA Imaging out of Toronto. And the reason I chose them was I used to use a couple places in the States, but then with the exchange rate and the shipping, it just got to be the same price as from Canada. So then I'm like, I'm just going to go to Canada. And then for me, it was between Technicare and GTA. And at the time, GTA offered the things that I wanted to be offering. And they have a really nice canvas. Their canvas product is hard backed. So it's not, it'll never warp. It'll never dent in the corners. It's mounted on a hard surface. And I really like that. And they've always been like super good, like any damage or whatever, no problem, I just replace it. Yeah. I've tried a couple times. Photoshop, I think there's better teachers out there than me. I think that if you had a specific trouble, I could help you with it. or you're trying to get a specific thing, but to teach from step 1 to step 2, there's so many different ways to get the same results in Photoshop. And I've been with it for so long that I'm pretty sure that there's easier ways of doing things than the way that I do it. And trying to explain from a very beginner to what it is that I'm doing, I find that I just run away with it.
I guess my question is, I used to teach,
Oh yeah.
but no one stayed higher than me.
No.
And I certainly like to learn that one stage higher than me.
Oh, well, yes, if you have experience, then I probably could help you out for sure. It's beginners that it's like, it's challenging for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then I just say, go do the tutorials and then find somebody that offers a good course. And there are definitely better teachers. Like if I would say the best Photoshop learning, Photoshop, Lightroom, Adobe, anything learning is Kelby One. It's an online, a whole online education platform with a lot of different educators. If you're not familiar, it's worth the money.
It's which?
Kelby One,
Only one.
Kelby. He's the guy that Adobe goes to make changes in Photoshop. Like he's the one that says, hey, you should do this, or you should have a tool that does this.
Yeah, he hasn't put anything out after.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I got everything from, I had everything from. It's another state.
Yeah.
The books are all very, very good.
Yeah, he's a good writer. I have a few of his as well. Like it's easy to follow his teaching style. But yeah, everything's online now, right? They want to subscribe you up every month. Oh, that's awesome. Good. Yeah, there's some incredible work that comes out of those, the accreditation. Like I'm like, okay, this is my best work. I'm so proud of it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys, like they just blow you out of the water. Like that's why I'm super happy about my bronzes. When I get a gold or a silver, it'll just be like, to get your associate's level, which is the first level, you have to have 50 points and you get half a point for each bronze. So right now I have like, I think 15 points. No, but they only open it up at certain times of the year. So you have like, actually this year was the first year that they did it. They opened it up 3 times. So I submitted every time this year, but it used to just be once a year, and you can submit as many as you want. They cost per image that you enter. With the Portrait Masters, it costs $20 US per image. And then they give you a month to submit, and then it takes a month to grade them or whatever, judge them. And then they release the results or whatever, and you plug along. No, like I know with PPA you can get feedback from the judges, and this year with Portrait Masters, like this last time that it was submitted, which is they're judging right now, you could get like a couple minutes or whatever to, you'd have to pick which ones you want them to give you a critique on, and then they will, but that's the first time that they're doing it. Yeah, and I mean, it's nothing to clients, right? They're not hiring me, you know, because I got an award for something. But for me, it's just a way to elevate my skill and to keep me motivated to do better and do better. And especially when you see other people in your field and they're doing like phenomenally way better than me, you know, then you're like, oh, I got to go follow them and find out, you know, how I can get better, right? Hmm.
There's a request to see the trust fund without.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, that was the one that had the. So there's one of these ones with the kids too, where it's two twin sisters, and then I took half of their faces and merged them together like one person, like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. There, right there. Yeah. There, that's my Nindroid. So she's an author, and this was her picture. And she's a welder. And she's a herbalist. She loves Arizona. And that's kind of how the themes come out. Well, I used to Mickey Mouse lighting totally until this year I bought some new lights. So now I use Godex ones and a 200 and a 600, but the 600 is really way too powerful for my studio. But I want to take this style of work outside, and then I'm going to need something that'll overpower the sun. Yeah, wireless, yeah. Yeah, before that, my husband had bought me a cheapo set of like, you know, everything you need. 3 stands, 3 soft boxes, 3 lights for like $150, right? So you know the quality of those lights. I just threw them out. Actually, they're still in the studio. They're just in a pile of this needs to go. I would use a speed light to trigger those lights so that they would work on my clients. And it's been totally, when people say, oh, teach me lighting, I'm like, you don't want to learn from me. Yeah. And then I just use speed lights when I'm outside, or, you know, and then now that I got the new lights, I can take them out. Yeah. But I don't even really like to shoot outside anymore because I can just control everything in the studio, right? And I can create it the way that I want it to look. Where when I go outside, I get kind of distracted about, oh, I need to go here and I need to go here and I need to go here, instead of just setting up and saying, okay, this is my scene and I'm going to shoot in this area, and not be like, okay, we're going to take one picture here, one picture over here, and I'm going to lug my lights everywhere we go. And yeah, I need to get out of that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Sherry.
You're welcome.
Okay, that was excellent presentation. Where are you getting the lights? Thank you.
Do you want this?
And I think also it probably gives some ideas for our composite competition. We've got our winter competition. We have a composite as one of the categories, and it's movie poster. So could give some ideas for. Yeah. And don't trust me with Photoshop. I can't even run Zoom. Obviously tonight you guys have seen my Zoom capabilities, and it's I can't imagine the patience that you have for Photoshop, because I know I don't.
Well, it's my happy place. Like I actually rather do the Photoshop version.
Yeah, not me. So again, thanks everybody for coming, and thanks Zoom people at home. And our next presenter is
We don't know yet.
we don't know yet. It's still a TBA, to be announced. We don't quite know. That will be coming up in the 10th of November. We do have Scotty's got pictures here. So anybody that's in the room that had stuff over at the rec center for the corridor gallery, they're here. For anybody at home on Zoom, I will send you an email and we'll arrange a way to get them to you. Okay, so that's it. And, good night, everybody, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.